Hi, everyone. I'm Andrea Donsky, co-founder of Morphus, powered by Naturally Savvy. And today I am here with my incredible co-founder, Randy Boyer. Say hi, Randy. I'm so happy to have you.
Hey everyone, so happy to be here.
So today we're going to talk about working from home. So Randy and I have been business partners for 20 years. We're actually celebrating 20 years this year, which I'm very proud of us. And we thought we want to come to you and tell you what some of our secrets are for working at home. So Randy, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, so for me, what works for me is exercise. When I wake up in the morning, it's usually one of the first things that I do. When everything was as it was, I would go out and go work out at a gym. But now I'm heading down to my basement. I've got my workout set up. I'm using either workouts that I see online from my studio, or I'm going to YouTube because there's lots of great people. I'll stick my favorite down, someone I'm following very recently and I happen to love, and I'll share that with you because she's got some great workouts. And I find that is the best kickoff to my day before I start. I clear my mind and I get myself ready to focus and I stay healthy.
And what I like about exercising first thing in the morning, because I do that as well, although not as regularly as you do, I have to say you are very good at that. Working out in the morning is great because it gets it out of my day. So it's over and done with. Whereas if I leave it to the end of the day, I find that I may not get it done. So I love that tip. All right, number two.
Okay, so number two is going to be get dressed. Let's face it, it's so easy to just stay in our pajamas, start our day off and just get right to it. But you don't feel like you're at work when you're in your pajamas, right? Andrea, what do you think?
So this was something that was very important when I first started. I learned this the hard way a little bit because when we first started 20 years ago, my office was on the same floor as my bedroom. And I would get up and I would be all excited to get to work. And then I would look at my watch and it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I was still in my pajamas. So I thought, that's not really going to work for me. So I made myself a promise every single day when I'm working, because I've been working from home for 20 years, is I would shower, put on my makeup. If you wear makeup, you don't have to put on your makeup, but I like to put on makeup. I do my hair, whether it's even if it's in a ponytail, it doesn't matter, and get dressed in proper clothing, meaning different clothing than your pajamas. So I would get dressed, whether it's Lulu's or sweatpants, it doesn't really matter, nothing fancy, but I needed to make that distinction between pajamas, sleepwear, and actual getting dressed for workwear. So yes, very good tip, and one that I am extremely adamant about.
Okay, so another really good tip, an important tip, especially today while everyone is home, is starting the discussion before you start to work with your family. Because when you're at work, you want to be focused and you want to have as few interruptions as possible. So before you start work, I would say sit down with your family and have a dialogue with them about when you're at work, it's work time, and when you're off, it's off time. Now, obviously, this is going to vary with the age of your kids, but explaining to them that it's very important that while you're at work, that you're not being disturbed, and coming up with a system in place when they need you on how they can disturb you. Is it a note? Is it maybe a text? Or is it maybe that you're going in tandem with your spouse and your partner today because maybe you're both home, in sharing that time and going, okay, when I'm at work, you're going to take care of the kids and vice versa. But really talking about it so they understand the importance of the fact that you need to work when you need to work, and that you can't be interrupted every 5 minutes because they need you. And I'm going to let Andrea talk to it more on the younger side of kids, because my kids are teenagers now and they understand that. And we've been doing it for so long that we have the system in place. But I'm going to let Andrea take over on the younger side.
Yeah, it's definitely harder if you have younger kids. So I've got 2 teenagers, but I also have a little one at home. She's single digit still. She's 9. And she doesn't, I mean, even though she understands, I still get interrupted a lot. So what I do is I love the note on the door. I will say, don't come in. I'll lock my door. I do have a lock. So another good thing, if you're able to have a separate office in your house and you have a lock on the door, even if it's your bedroom, put a lock on it and lock the door. Now, this might backfire because your kids might knock profusely on the door, which has happened before. So you need to know your kids. So I'll put a lock, and then I'll also put a note on the door, and then I'll leave paper outside my door. And my daughter, if she has to ask me something, she'll actually slip a piece of paper under my door. She's got the pen and paper outside. She'll slip it under, and if I can, I'll answer the question. If I can, I'll say, I'm on a call, come back after. Now, a lot of the times my kids do come in, and because we're at home, it's okay. People are so much more forgiving now than we were before the self-isolation. So if your kids do come in, I stay very close to the mute button. So if I'm on a Zoom call or I'm on my phone call, I always make sure that I have my mute button accessible, because a lot of the times my kids may not even understand or may not even think or realize that I'm on my call. So I'm like, hit the mute button, and people are like, are you still there? I'm like, no, I'm still there. You're just on mute, so you don't have to hear all the interruptions that are going on.
I've come up with some really great hand signals, like.
It's like, get out, go. Exactly. Oh my God. Sorry, I didn't hear what you said. What?
I said, we get very creative when we're trying to tell someone to be quiet. Don't talk.
It's like, go, I'm on a call, go. Exactly. So that would be another one. But if you can, but we, like I said, people are very forgiving nowadays, and they understand our kids are home, people are at home. So it's not like it was prior to being in self-isolation where you wanted to be that, utmost professional kind of thing.
Exactly. So I think the other thing that really is very important is to set ourselves up for success. And that setup is a proper office setup. If you are lucky to have a dedicated office space, then that office is going to include everything that you need to function professionally, even from maybe putting in a stand-up desk. And I'm gonna show you a picture of mine that's gonna pop up on the screen. And this is my office and my desk, and you'll see how I'm set up. Back support, because I find for me that's very helpful, but if you don't have that problem. And I'm going up and down, by the way. If you're wondering why you're seeing a chair, it's because I don't stand 100% of the time, but I try and stand a good 50% of my day. I've got a humidifier, I've got a diffuser, sometimes a heater in the winter. My office can feel cold. So it's feeling really comfortable with everything you need on top of the typical office stuff, like your notebook. I'm a note taker. So I have my notebook right next to me. I've got a printer and all the things that you might need in your office. And if you don't have a dedicated home office, then wherever you're going to decide is going to be your office, whether it be your kitchen table or your office table, is to think ahead and be prepared and set it up before, so that when you start work, you're not stopping and starting, I gotta go get this, I don't have that. Really thinking about what's gonna make you feel comfortable and what's gonna make you be productive.
And that's important, especially when it comes to focus. So because you want to focus on one thing at hand, and you don't want to keep getting up and kind of going to do this and going to do that. So that's a really good tip. And like Randy said, you're making sure you have your printer paper, make sure you have pens that work, because I like to doodle and take notes when I'm writing and then transfer it onto my computer, because especially if you're on a Zoom call, you're not going to be typing. Well, it's harder to type and at the same time that you're on the actual video call. So having a notepad, and having not so much, one thing I found that really works well for me is having an actual notepad, meaning all my notes are in one place. Because what tends to happen is that you're like, oh, wait, I need a piece of paper. I grab a piece of paper, and then I have like hundreds of papers across my desk, as opposed to one notepad, a nice thick notepad with the date at the top, who you spoke to, and what the notes are. It keeps everything a lot more organized, which I really like, and keeps you more focused as well. I'm a big fan on the essential oils. Like Randy said about a diffuser, I find essential oils help keep me focused. They help to wake up my brain, which I love. So all really great tips. And by the way, I don't only always work in my office. I work, like Randy said, also, I work in my dining room a lot. So wherever, it could be your bedroom, on your bed, it doesn't matter, as long as you're able to stay focused where you are and you're able to concentrate. That is the important thing.
And I'm going to add 2 more products that I use on a daily basis. Number 1, a noise canceling headset. So this is great when you find you have a noisy house, as I do. Even with a dedicated office and a door closed, it can be noisy. So this helps block out the noise of everything else, so you can focus on your call. So I'm going to say this is like a staple that I use quite often. And another thing that I discovered, and it's a newer discovery, is that you can actually get a keyboard that is quiet. So that if you're trying to multitask, you're talking to, maybe it's a coworker, and you're typing and you don't want the noise of the keyboard, they actually make quiet keyboards. They're super inexpensive. They say the word quiet when you search it. I'm going to put a link below. And I love that quiet keyboard. It's a new discovery that I didn't know existed.
Yes.
So just in case you didn't know it existed, I'm sharing that tip with you.
And this existed because I would always, when Randy and I were on calls, I'd always say, you're typing so loud, we can hear you type. So I love that you found that and found a solution to that, because it definitely is a little irritating for the people on the other side of the phone. So great discovery, Randy. I love it.
It's the small things that make a difference, right? Okay, so another tip is the starting and stopping. This is so easy to do when you're at home, especially when you get interrupted. So I'm going to really stress and encourage you to try and not do that, to sort of dedicate and devote a specific amount of time and think about it before. Eat your breakfast, get the desk, and feel like you're getting something accomplished, because the stopping and starting makes it very difficult to feel like you had a very successful day. So maybe it's the way you plan your meals and your food, keeping your snacks nearby. We're going to get into that a little bit more, but really trying to get yourself regulated to not stop and start as much as possible.
Yeah, and also making sure that you eat properly, having your breakfast, having your lunch, and then obviously the rest of your day, your dinner. And in between, have a snack, something that's going to give you energy. For example, eating protein-rich foods. Protein helps to wake up our brain, and it prevents us from snacking throughout the day. Eating foods that have fiber, because that helps with blood sugar balance. So all of these things are really important. Being a nutritionist, I want to make sure that you are fueled. You have the right nutrition and right nutrients in you in order to be able to keep that concentration and keep that focus. I like to keep snacks in my office, nuts, seeds. I also like to keep bars in my office. So if I find that I'm getting a little bit hungry, I'll reach for something that's on my desk. So I don't actually have to get up and go to another room to actually eat. It's right there in front of me, so that I won't really break up any type of concentration block that I'm working in.
Exactly. Now, our final tip, which is probably we found to be for us a really important tip, is having a lifeline. Andrew and I have been so lucky. We've been partners for so long that we've always had each other. So when the house was empty and it was really just each of us working in each other's homes, we're constantly talking to each other and having each other as that connecting. And today it could be even more isolating with everything. You've got your family, but sometimes you need somebody else to talk to break up the day. So really reaching out to friends or family or a mentor or somebody that you can connect with. Maybe it's just for 10, 15 minutes, just to have that little bit of separation and not feel like you're all alone in your office. Or maybe you're by yourself at home and you need someone else to talk to. So having that person for you. And for us, we're lucky. We had each other.
We did. 20 years, baby. 20 years. Yeah. My husband would always laugh whenever he always knew when Randy was out of town, because when Randy's in town, Randy and I speak to each other, I don't know, many, like 20 times a day, probably. But when she's out of town, I would call him and he would be like, oh, right, Randy's out of town. I get it. Now you're calling me 100 times a day. So he could always tell. And we never really, the interesting thing is Randy and I never really understood, I guess, or realized it until recently, the importance of that lifeline and the importance that we have each other and why we speak to each other so many times a day. So if you don't have a business partner, reach out to a client, reach out to a family member, reach out to a friend. Doesn't even have to be about business during your day. Just having that lifeline of someone to connect with and talk to, because it can be very isolating. So those would be our tips. And one last tip I do have is trying to stay positive as much as you can. I know when Randy and I first started working from home, I would have this mantra that I would say every single day, and just something to remind me to stay positive, that we're all in this together. And that really helped me. So whatever it is, that quote that you read somewhere, or a mantra that you want to say to yourself, or just like, I can do this, whatever that is, that little bit of inspiration really helps. And saying it before you start your workday.
And I remember, Andrew, you always had that, like a picture, a poster with that mantra, like right next to you in your office. I remember seeing it. And you know what, if that helps you and you need to have that, you know what, put it up. And every morning or at a point where you're feeling low, look at it to remind yourself. It's a great reminder. And I love that. So,
well, Rand,
we've been doing it for 20 years. You could absolutely do it, and you can get a lot of work done too. So we've armed you with our best tips.
I love it. And thanks for being the best partner in the world, Randy. I love you. And to all of you, if you got value out of today's video, right back with me, baby. If you got value out of today's video, please share it. Please give it a big like and subscribe to our channel, because although we don't normally talk about working from home, we thought this would be a really good video of value to you. So thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.